What is going on, Dave? Thank you so much for coming on the show. If you wouldn't mind, just give everyone the introduction to who you are.
Yeah, for sure. Nice to be here, Jimmy. Thanks for having me. My name's Dave Bunce. I am the president of Hawke.ai. Background, give you a really quick version of my history. Of all things, I'm an accountant by trade who found his way into marketing. Numbers were way more interesting for marketers than for accountants, and you can be a little more creative with marketing than accounting. So I started by running finance and operations for a digital marketing agency, and we've created a piece of software in that agency that is now called Hawke.ai. And primary focus is it's a marketing intelligence platform.
I love it. I love it. And so, I think what's really interesting about you guys is when did you guys first kind of realize that AI was going to become an important part of the future of marketing? Because I think that is something that, I'm always excited to just, when we have these conversations, because, you guys saw it earlier than most.
Yeah, so we started building the product in end of 2015, so very early on. But it was at that time meant to be just an internal tool, and we were using it for ourselves. We were our own guinea pigs with our own data and our own customers. And what made us lead to that conclusion? One, we had a development team at the time, so we did have horsepower that way. And then two, we met a PhD student in machine learning who was doing a thesis on how machine learning could impact the analysis of consumer behavior. And so us as a digital marketing company, him doing consumer behavior work was a pretty impactful match. And we were brought together through our own local sort of research and development type groups in our city. So it led us to the conclusion that there's a sheer amount of data that just can't be handled by people. And we saw that within our own team, the sort of burnout, the mistakes that were getting made because we're dealing with, thousands of ads a day. There's going to be mistakes made, and there's going to be, things that come up that you don't expect. So how could we protect our team? How could we make us smarter and work faster to produce better results for our clients? And that's what we started building. It took a long time to get to where we are, as you can tell. That was 8 years ago. But the whole concept at the time in terms of AI was purely from a machine learning perspective, predicting where the results were going to go and identifying anomalies in the data that we were seeing for our clients. So, hey, this campaign on Google Ads saw a big spike in CTR in the last week. Here's some recommendations based on that. That's where we started, and then have expanded from there.
I love it. I love it. No, that and it's really cool. And obviously, you then got introduced to Hawk around this time or a little after. But what were those initial conversations like when you were talking with Eric just about what this space is going to turn into?
Yeah, it was really neat. So to give further context to the conversation, we built this initially within our own digital marketing agency based in Canada. If you hear me say like out or about or anything like that, you might think I'm from Minnesota, but I'm just Canadian. So the background is we built it within our own digital marketing agency that we ended up selling at the end of 2019 and spun out that IP, that tech that we were building. We were in market for about a year and a half. We raised a seed round. Product was called Morpheo. The whole idea of the product originally was to help create content and a web page morph to convert better. So we called it Morpheo. And that was really the aligning vision of coming together with Hawk Media. We came from an agency background. We understood the power of having real client information, real data to teach our models and to train ourselves on what works and what doesn't, and having the domain expertise to interpret it. So we got together with Eric and Tony, who are the co-founders and co-owners of Hawk Media. We got together with them at the end of 2021. They had always known that this was coming. Eric did a TEDx talk in 2016, I think it was, about this exact topic. And he said, just watch this and tell me what you think. And we watched it, and it was like listening to our pitch, our investor pitch, and reading our own vision statement and everything. So it was a perfect match that way. They had the data, They had the clients, they had the domain expertise, and we had the product and back end team. So that's what brought us together with Hawke Media. And fast forward a year and a half later, and it's definitely working. We're up to over 6,000 businesses using the product and feeding in information. And we'll get into AI and training and all that, but having that sheer volume of real world information has certainly become a valuable piece to us being able to build a better product.
That's good. And so where do you see your product in particular evolving? Obviously, generative AI is becoming more and more popular, especially since you guys had those initial conversations in 2021. And even today, I just saw that DALL-E 3 was released and the images are looking even better. So do you guys see yourself incorporating generative AI? Are you going to focus more on like the analytics side? Like kind of walk me through what you see as the product roadmap for Hawke.ai over the next year or so?
Yeah, great question. And it's a debate we've had internally as well. I think if you think about, DALL-E 3, for example, with ChatGPT integration, so it can take, your natural language and in a environment where it's also contextualized with prompts around business goals and around audience demographics. And I've seen some of your awesome content, Jimmy, where it's, what you've done with the brand that you decided to make up. Just look at those videos and see how powerful, those prompts and that conversation with ChatGPT is. Layer in that same ability to interact and engage with that business context or those prompts with the imagery is pretty powerful. And I think, so knowing that there's already an ecosystem being built there. And two, knowing that DALL-E 3, for example, it said that I was reading, it's something like 12 billion parameter values have been put into this thing. The sheer volume of that is sort of unfathomable. Like it's such a big number, you don't really realize what it represents. And so to me, the way products like ours are going to differentiate is not in necessarily being a competitor to that ecosystem. But what I do think it is it's about overlaying the real-time information, the real-time data, and the sort of predictive forecasting and analysis to build better prompts and build better recommendations. So if you think of ChatGPT 3, I think it goes up to November 2021 of historical information. And you think about that and say, okay, well, it knows how to do certain things. It's not updated on current events. It can't tell you what Facebook's click-through rate is today on average, but we can. So how can we use the information we have that is not necessarily trainable, combined with the training of these large models? And when we put those things together, we're best. So our plan isn't to butt up against, it's to make our moat be the proprietary data that we have and the analysis of that data, and then using it to get effective generative AI out of it. That's my thought. And then another point we can go off on this is, and I know obviously where you're coming at it from is similar, like what actually works, right? And what actually produces good results. And these models can produce based on what you tell it to, but it can't produce based on what it knows works in the moment or not. And maybe I'm off on a little tangent, but curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. DeepMind's co-founder talked about this a little bit by saying generative AI is really just a phase, and he says interactive AI is next. And what's interesting about that is it allows you to have almost like these agents that do the task for you with the data perspective in mind. So right now, you could go on ChatGPT, type in, write, an effective email subject line for me, and it can do that. But again, it's not being generated based on, I've analyzed 50,000 emails. I've figured out what the winning formula of the best subject line is, and I'm giving you that. It can just read what is talked about on blogs or other things publicly available, but none of that is truly from an analytical perspective. But in the future, I mean, I think we're going to be able to get to the point at let's just say that, it's Black Friday. You guys are doing a campaign for your company and it's buy one, get one free. You need, 10 different ads or 20 different ads. You need 15 different email campaigns created and you need 6 different landing pages. I think AI is going to be able to essentially help with that entire process, and it will know the whole process because we start to see tools like Dolly 3 where you can integrate ChatGPT into it and it can start to plug together in this phase. So it's going to be less of like one-off things and more, hey, this is what I need. It's all of these different aspects, whether it be, again, email, whether it be whatever, and it's going to be able to do all of that for you. Copilot is a term that is being thrown around in the AI world these days, but I truly think that that's where we're going to be going within the next year or so. Is you have one person kind of setting the direction, and then this AI agent is able to pull together everything in order to make it happen, and that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, for sure. I think seeing it as, in today's state, I like to see it as an efficiency tool, right? Or a second set of eyes or a second in command. Your point on Copilot. It's something to get you 80% of the way there and 20% of the time, right? And then your work as the individual is vetting, obviously, the output against contextualized goals, and B, then knowing that if there's any nuance or individualization that you want to put on it, you can, and that's the final 20%, right? But I think that's how I view AI right now, and I kind of like to break it down into this sort of two by two box of, where you see the best opportunity to deploy AI, and there's kind of a internal versus external, right? So internal being, we need to create some ads. That does go external, but that's an internal task, versus external being, I'm going to have a chat bot engaging with my customers, right? Internal is always less risky. And then the other aspect of it is act versus assist. And your point on co-piloting to me is assist, which takes on a less risky move than black box automation and acting. So your lowest risk thing is internal assistant. And I think that's the lowest hanging fruit and the best place to start. If somebody's like, I know this AI thing, I need to do something. Start with that lowest hanging fruit of internal assistance, and then move your way up through that box to, external action.
Totally. So, I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this, Dave. There was a study or a report that came out of Wharton, and it was looking at, first of all, they did one a while back looking at, can ChatGPT pass, an MBA exam, and it was able to outperform a lot of MBA students.
Yeah.
And so then they wanted to take the next step of like, is ChatGPT a better entrepreneur than MBA students? And they found that it was able to sell more effectively, think of better products, and all of this. And they didn't talk about this in the study, but I would be very curious if they would have done something that looked at whether humans thought that their ideas, the entrepreneurs themselves, if they would have thought that ChatGPT was able to come up with better ideas than them. Because I think there might be some almost human element to this whole thing within generative AI. If people are going to put up walls saying, oh, because that's AI generated, I don't think it's as good. Even though it might be better than what humans can do, there might be like that ego or that pride aspect that holds them back from actually trusting in that and listening to AI to make all those decisions, which is, again, why I think the Copilot side is going to be almost a better, at least like you said, low-hanging fruit of you're not trying to replace the humans yet, of like, we're better than you at this specific task. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on just whether it be that study or even, are humans going to put up a wall to admit that AI is better than them?
Yeah, I mean, we faced that in our own agency 7 years ago when we started building the product. It was walls up. What are you building? What's this AI thing? What's this software? Are you trying to replace our jobs? Like we faced those objections 7 years ago when we started building this. And so, yes, I think there are going to be guards put up. I think it's going to be a bit of a survival of adopt, the evolve or perish, adapt or die type mentality, right? As much as you can put up the guards, there's only so long that you're going to be able to until people pass you because they're using these efficiency tools and because they're using models or know how to get the best out of the models that they can. And so I think there will be resistance, but I think those who embrace it will get further ahead in the long run. Is sort of my takeaway on the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's what a common theme on this podcast has been, is just use the tools. Like, don't think you're better than it. Just experiment with it, play with it, and just learn how to use it, because there's no harm in doing that. And only upside to have. So yeah, another question that I have too, Dave, is, let's just say that we do get to a point at which generative AI is becoming popular. And I know TikTok recently just announced that they are going to allow for creators, the ability for creators to label their AI generated content, whether it be images or eventually videos. The key word in there is like they allow creators to. It's not
Right.
forced. But do you think that could also be a downside of generative AI, in the sense of, soon enough, you're going to have to disclose if anything is AI generated? And if you're scrolling on Facebook, going back to that human element, and you are watching an ad and there's the little disclaimer at the bottom saying this was generated from AI, do you think that could even impact just what the future of this space looks like?
I think it could, definitely. I think it depends on how aggressive the platforms are in enforcing that labeling, right? I mean, you look at recent precedent in something similar, even with, Instagram having paid, putting the label like paid partnership, right? Was there a dip in performance from paid social ads because of that? The answer that I've seen is no.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't deterred people. I think, anecdotally, I would agree, saying like, yeah, if somebody knows that this is a paid partnership and it says that, they probably are less likely to click on it. But I think it's also naive of us to think that, somebody on Instagram shamelessly promoting a product was just for fun, right? With AI, it's a little different because it's harder to discern that, right? But overall, even when there has been these labels and sort of publicized views of this content is paid partnership, we haven't seen a turn down in results because of that. So I think if it's good, it's good, and if it's bad, it's bad, regardless of where it comes from. I think the biggest risk or challenge is actually going to be the volume of content that starts coming at us. And so, with AI tools, the output is so much faster. And I said it's an efficiency tool, right? So I totally understand that. But you think about the volume of information and the volume of ads or the volume of content that's going to come at us, whether it's AI or human, trying to even absorb and digest all of that is going to be really, really tricky.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, like, we're already seeing the volume, which is crazy. I mean, I don't know if you are, and this hasn't been verified from like someone at Fabletics, but I've heard from multiple sources that at a conference, I think the Meta conference in June or July, that Fabletics announced that they create 50,000 ads every single month on these, I think, Facebook and TikTok. Which is absolutely insane, but that is where the future of this space is going. And obviously, as growth marketers know, the creative is everything. And so the more creative that you can have and throw at Facebook, the more that you're able to learn what works and what doesn't work. And so, I mean, could we get to a point at which every company is able to generate thousands of ads? And like, what would that look like from just the user experience level?
Right. And well, I mean, it would be a great benefit to our product. more data, to work from, and more reason to have the analytics being powered by AI. But yeah, wouldn't that be overwhelming, right? And you also think, where's the saturation of statistical relevance, right? Okay, if I'm blasting out 50,000 ads, how many impressions do I need in order to be able to reach conclusions accurately on testing and what's working and what's not? But I think there is still an upper limit yet to be pushed by the common brand against that, which again, just the sheer volume of content out there is going to be tricky to absorb and to get a good read on of what's working and what's not.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. Another question too, Dave. Have you found any tools, obviously at Hawk AI you can plug, but have you found any other AI tools that you have come to appreciate or just think that, yeah, this is going to be something that we keep an eye on or we're excited about? Obviously I think ChatGPT, Midjourney are ones that most people are familiar with, but do you have others in your wheelhouse that you've seen demos for or just, again, come across that get you excited about the future of AI and, commerce?
Yeah. I mean, I look at something as simple that I use is something called Superhuman, which is like email app that basically lets you write emails faster, right? And they have an AI component to it now, whether that's just being plugged in through ChatGPT, maybe. But, I look at tools like that that I use every day from an efficiency standpoint. That would be one of them, right? A simple, give me this email, or I need to write this to a customer, or predicting, the next things we need to say. That's a good one. There's also one that I've been in talks to that's really cool. It's called Sturdy AI. And that one is for, there's the idea of similar, let us take unstructured data like CRM information or emails and back and forth, Slack messages, email messages, real live content as opposed to, a database going in. And it monitors and tells you when there's risks. And as a business operator, I look at client service business. We can get notifications when a client sends an angry email now. Like, hey, Sturdy AI has identified, and let's be clear, there's not many of them, and Hawk Media is great and all that. But, sometimes you'll get an email of like, my results are down. I'm not happy. And for that to bubble up to the right people and in real time get alerts and notifications of like, hey, this client sent an email 2 minutes ago or an hour ago that has a pretty negative tone to it, and they're not happy. How quickly can we as leaders of the business jump on that email, respond to it, and conflict resolve that, right? So that's another tool that is really interesting and exciting, the potential, because it's that unstructured data as opposed to some of the more structured stuff that we do at Hawk AI.
Yeah.
Even same with like customer reviews. You look at some of the tools in that space where your product, you're an e-commerce business and you're getting customer reviews all over the place, and you've got product reviews on Amazon, you got product reviews on your own site, you've got them other places. If you're a wholesaler, they might live somewhere else too. How do you synthesize all those product reviews and understand sentiment and tone and brand engagement and all of that? There's a ton of interesting evolution in that space, but that's another area that's kind of exciting and cool in marketing that I've seen getting put into play.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And how do you stay up to date with all, the new AI tools? Is it Twitter? Is it, Hawk has their Hawk Ventures, so I'm sure you guys get some pitch decks that come through, or just kind of walk me through how you like to stay in the loop.
I just rely on you sending me links and saying, what do you think? No, good question. On the periodic basis, it is conferences and professional development. I was at a Reuters conference focused on AI, 2-day AI summit in Austin in the summer. So I'll go to a couple conferences a year focused solely on technical advancements and AI. But outside of that, in the day-to-day, it's the same as everybody else, reading online articles, talking to founders, right? And as much as I kind of joke about, you sending me stuff, is what's Jimmy up to and what are you guys working on? And then, the Sturdy AI business I talked to about there, I've talked to their founders and just connecting with other founders in the space that are doing interesting things. That's how I learn it best is just talking to people that are at the forefront of it. The news articles and such are great, but it's obviously a little bit, based on what's being released and what's out there today. as opposed to getting in front of founders and hearing what's coming next. And just like this conversation, which has all been forward focused, which is awesome. That's a lot of what I think my learning comes from is just talking to founders who are in the space and what they see coming next.
Totally. So, Dave, I got another question, and this one is one that I've been thinking about quite a bit. What do you see as the role that marketing agencies will play over the next couple years as AI does develop? Like, if we are able to get to that point at which AI can, accurately predict what's going to work better than other things, and eventually create those things that are going to work better than most. What do you see as the role of a marketing agency, especially within, e-commerce and just the future of this space?
Yep. A couple of things. One is the value proposition and the proof of value to a client is no longer going to necessarily be execution of platform work. And we've seen that starting to go away already, right? Even within the intelligence within the ad platforms themselves, compare Google Ads 10 years ago to Google Ads today, there's a far less sort of levers you can pull and manipulate and change, especially with some of the Performance Max campaigns that are out in the last year or so. It's a different beast than before, where before it was, we are subject matter experts that know how to navigate all this complicated stuff and press all the right buttons to produce a result from a single channel. That I think is going away, or at least it's going to no longer be valuable. It's going to be commoditized. Where the value is, or being able to bill and have engagements with clients on an actual, billing on value basis, is going to be coming from strategic thinking, and that sounds very canned, but what I mean by that is actually I think it's going to come from two things. It's going to be from connecting the dots of the business objectives to the settings and the sort of the way the platforms are configured, right? Like, advertising looks different for a brand that is a mature product that is looking to eke out margin versus a brand that is just starting today. So contextualizing business phase of growth with the marketing efforts that you're going to deploy. It's going to be more important that the agency has a full or broader understanding of all services. I think your individual execution of, we're a Google Ads shop, that's not going to fly anymore. Mm-hmm. You're going to need to be able to know all the different channels and know enough to be dangerous to understand allocation of effort between all of those. And then linking the business objectives is kind of the other key. And that's really what an agency is going to be for, along with, I think, the emotional connectivity. I think, generative AI is going to get you there to some extent, but understanding the trigger points and the emotional storytelling of a brand, that can't quite be replaced. The actual production assets can be, but finalizing and agreeing on a creative direction and what audience and what triggers matter to those people, that's going to be the part that will still need a human lens to it.
Yeah, that's good. Last question, Dave, and then we'll wrap things up. Is there just one, whether it be hot take or piece of advice, that you want a lot of the listeners to know, or again, it can be anything in this space, like I talked about, a common theme from a lot of individuals is, hey, just start testing these tools out, like start using them. Like that's one that we've gotten before. Other people have expressed, like, AI is coming, like, start to integrate it in your business, whatever it might be. Like, do you have kind of, whether it be, again, hot take, piece of advice that you want the listeners to take away from just your thoughts this episode, anything like that?
Yeah. Piece of advice is garbage in, garbage out still, right? I mean, whatever you're putting into these models, it's going to spit out what it thinks is best, but what you put in is the differentiator now, right? So just as much as it's old school in thinking, garbage in, garbage out still is true, especially in this case. It's up to you what you put in. And so that's my one thing. The other sort of take, I think, as well, is we often overestimate the impact in the short term of technology changes and we actually underestimate it in the long term.
Mm.
So seeing all this cool stuff come forward, I don't think we're going to be replaced by robots in the next 6 months. But in the long term, we underestimate the possibilities. So start using them today, get comfortable today, like you said. And then in terms of longer term thinking, think as big as you want to, and think about the need to adapt these things to survive in the long term. You don't need to adapt these in the next 6 months to survive. Next 6 years, 10 years, 20 years? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. Even though all the Twitter bros and AI newsletters will probably tell you otherwise, I think Dave is on the right track with this one. But yeah, Dave, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. Really enjoyed the conversation, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.